Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. This week, I'm so excited. I have a fellow female Vikings aficionado. That's what I'm going to call her. Tatum Everett here from Vikings Entertainment Network. We're going to delve deep into what got her into football and the Vikings, and also we talk all the topics with Tatum. So stick around. I think you're going to like this one.
Yes, this is Dawn of Sports. I'm here with Dawn Mitchell, as always, of Fox 9 fame. Brandon Morton is our producer. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune. Dawn, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest, and then we're going to get to the Super Bowl and women's sports and everything else.
Absolutely. One of my favorite people, actually. She's all blushy. Tatum Everett from Vikings Entertainment Network. It's so great for me to have a female that's with me every single day and knows what it's like to have to perform, be on television, turn your stories, and just kind of live the life. Fellow reporter kind of in the trenches with me. So Tatum, thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh,
I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. And it's an equally so much respect for you, Dawn, always, because the grind is real. And that's what I did before the Vikings. I was in local TV in Nashville and several other stops before that nobody in this audience probably has ever heard of, because you always start a little small in the TV world. And it's almost like when you meet the people that are in, and I'm sure it's the same when you meet beat writers and newspaper folks, like you're in this like unspoken fraternity of people that just have the same understanding of what you've been through and what you've done to get there. And it just is this like unspoken rule. I don't know. So it's been awesome to have someone at our partner who is a female and that we can kind of have that going for us. And it's not like, but that's also a great thing about the Vikings and Minnesota in general. I feel like we have a lot of women representation in the media. And when we're in the locker room, it's not just a bunch of men and like one girl just hanging out. So
for a long time, that was me, though.
I bet that was. No doubt
Jim?
about it.
Yes, and I tell you what, I was a NFL writer for a long time in the old days, and a baseball beat writer in the old days. First started doing columns, and I always tell people the world got so much better when women started doing those jobs, and it wasn't just a bunch of guys hanging out in the locker room, because a bunch of guys in the locker room, things can get nasty. And I thought everybody cleaned up their act and acted a little more human when we finally had some women hanging around us.
Yeah, I remember the first few times when I was in there, because I was raised with 4 brothers, but my brothers are awesome to me, right? So they're not crass or rude or anything like that, but it didn't offend me. And so I remember, and I don't want to paint a picture of a bad locker room with the guys, but I just kind of felt like I could send the zingers right back to them and like, oh, she's one of us.
She can play ball now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not offended. You can call. It takes a lot to offend me personally.
I think you have to have that thick skin in what we do anyway. Like it has to take a lot to, like if something offends you, you probably it's just harder to do your job and deal with it. You get that thick skin pretty early on. They always say don't read your comments or your mentions or whatever, and I won't lie, I do. And there are some things that I'm like, really? Did you want to say that? But I also read them because sometimes I do want to hear feedback. I've encountered, things that maybe are like, oh, okay. But most of the time, I think I have a good enough sense of humor to be like, cool. Like, I don't know you. You don't know me. If you want to say those things, like, go for it. That says more about you than it does me. So I usually just don't take it too personal. I really don't.
I think the issue with me when it came to social media with that, because when you're in person and I can kind of give a Boston one-liner back to you, people know you're joking. But when you do that on social media, they're like, you're mean. I'm like, well, first of all, your comment to me was mean. And I wasn't offended by it. I was just being funny back to you. Or you took that so sensitive. I'm like, I actually really didn't. I was being funny. You can't hear my tone though.
Yeah.
So
I hate social media. It's just a necessary part of the business, but I hate it. So I just try to deal with it as I can. Let's reset here. This is Dawn of Sports. This is Dawn Mitchell's show at talknorth.com. Best way to listen to this show or any show at the network. Subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. We want to thank our longtime sponsor, Rudy Luther Toyota. They've been great for women's sports. They've been great for this network and this show. We do appreciate it. If you'd like to get in early and advertise on a show that does highlight women in sports, as well as everything else we do, Vikings, Twins, we do all the men's sports as well, You can reach Karen Cleary at KCLEARY@talknorth.com. And again, thanks to Brandon Morton for holding this thing together. We will get to some women's sports in a little bit, but let's face it, it's the Monday after the Super Bowl. Tatum, what did you think?
I mean, I enjoyed the game towards the end. I think it was a lot of comments from the Super Bowl peanut gallery party that I was at, where it was like, oh, this game's kind of boring. It's just kind of, nothing's really going on. And then the end kind of just made it one of those ones I probably won't forget. I did walk in here wearing my Taylor Swift sweatshirt because
Noticed,
I haven't really taken it off. But so obviously I was in the game for a lot of other reasons. I liked how many stars that we got to see, and I liked to see Usher's performance and who he brought on stage. And that's why I enjoyed the Super Bowl. And I don't really watch the commercials anymore. I don't know if you guys, I thought
the commercials are terrible.
They were not
the
very
best
good.
one, and I'm biased because I'm from Boston.
I know which one you're going to say.
The Dunkings.
Yes.
I mean, that was the best. That was the best
that might
one.
have been
But
the only
sadly,
good one.
It was one of the only good ones,
Yeah.
for sure. But as far as the game goes, I don't know. I've learned to not bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And I just didn't. For a while there, I was like, okay, this could be the year, because I thought San Francisco really was the better team into the fourth quarter. And then, Mahomes magic. And it's funny when you're sitting there with people that are casual football fans who don't really watch it day in, day out, week in and week out. They're like, of course, Patrick Mahomes will get a 2-minute warning, a 2-minute game-winning touchdown drive at the end of the game. I mean, it was the field goal, but at the same time, it was just like, of course, this is going to happen. The NFL is scripted, all those kinds of funny comments I like to hear. Because we're in the press box. We don't get to hear that stuff.
The NFL, obviously, why would they not want Kansas City to win all the championships? That's the biggest market in America. I mean, you wouldn't want a team from the Bay Area, that tiny little town up there, the little suburb. You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want LA teams to win the championship. You wouldn't want the New York teams to win the championship. You wouldn't want Chicago to be good. You would want the team in Kansas City to win all the Super Bowls.
The thing is, though, you knew when it was getting down to the wire that Mahomes can do anything. Now, what I found was interesting this morning, coming out of all the beat writers that were in the locker room last night, or for the teams, San Francisco did not know the overtime rules.
Amazing. And
did not know the overtime rules.
And so Kansas City, the players were talking afterward, like Chris Jones was saying, yep, we knew what the deal was, and we knew if they scored a touchdown, and they had it all planned out.
All done.
And the 49ers players had no idea they could have, if they'd scored a touchdown on their first drive, they would have celebrated like they had won the Super Bowl. It would have been a complete embarrassment.
So
wild.
That's on.
Well, and for someone
coaching.
I like Kyle Shanahan has been in the Super Bowl before. Now, granted, the rules are different, but to me, he's had a 2-point double-digit lead in all 3 of his Super Bowl appearances, and is 0-3. And it's, you can't. Obviously, as a coach, he's going to say, "I'll put this all on me," but at the same time, I'm sitting here going like, that's a weird coincidence too, that you're. And I do think that Dre Greenlaw, the fact that he was out, was a huge factor in that too.
Oh, that was horrible.
That was really, really sad to see. I mean, for an Achilles. And
I do say the game mirrored Usher's performance, because the beginning of Usher's
slow and
performance
then got it going.
Was not good. I'm like, is this mic off? Like, is he lip syncing? Like, what's
too much going on? Too many people out there.
And then it got better. So I'm like, that's exactly what the game was.
Well, as a guitarist, I just loved her.
She is incredible.
She's phenomenal, and to see her take center stage like that was really cool.
Did you see that
Alicia Keys came out? I was like,
And Alicia Keys is the best.
Yeah. Right, she's the best. But did you see that her actually sang the national anthem as a child?
Yes, so she was 9 years old.
49ers game?
No.
Yes.
Oh
so
my
she went from
gosh.
singing the national anthem as a 9-year-old to being on stage during the Super Bowl halftime.
She didn't go by her back then, did she?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
H.E.R.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
That's
Of course,
a lot of dots.
It's cool the way she's done it, but she's a great guitarist. All right, let's.
I just want to say one thing. I'm very happy though that Travis Kelce did not get on one knee and propose.
That wasn't.
I'm like, I know.
Andy Reid.
Yeah, to Andy. And you know that how they handle that whole tete-a-tete, shall we call it? I love Andy Reid because he's like, I like the. He said he caught me off guard. I didn't know he was coming.
His hip went out.
I like the passion. Yeah.
That was a bad look. I love Travis Kelce, but that was a bad look.
Somebody said, Taylor, red flag.
You could have killed her. Yeah, no kidding. By the way, on this show, our guests, listen, Dawn has done a great job bringing in guests. We do highlight a lot of women in sports as well as women's sports, but we we don't pigeonhole things. We have all kinds of cool people on. Last week we had Patrick Mahomes' godfather,
Yes.
LaTroy Hawkins, on.
He was awesome.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, and I've known LaTroy for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And he was just saying, hey, yeah, I talked to Patrick the other day and everything. And you have to Patrick's got all the Swifty stuff going on. He's got the pressure of trying to win another Super Bowl and elevate himself into maybe greatest of ever conversation. His father, who I was friendly with the Twins, got his third DUI during the. He had
that was
so much going
Mm-hmm.
on, and LaTroy just said, "Yeah, he's fine." And he's always. That's what LaTroy has always told me about Patrick.
Yeah,
Mahomes he's always the same. He handles He loves pressure, so when pressure hits him, it's not going to derail him at all.
You can tell.
Yep.
You can definitely tell. When I was in small town Louisiana up north in the state, it was right by the East Texas border. And I just remember going to one of the games I went to. Cliff Kingsbury was there recruiting this guy called Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was covering the other team, so I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But then come to find out, this kid from like super small town Tyler, Texas is like now one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen. And we get to watch that unfold, and makes me feel a little old because I was like, wow, I was there for his senior year.
Get used to that.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling.
I covered Larry Johnson when he was in high school, so I'm old. But it's just really, I just love being able to watch a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't identify with the greatness, but you can identify with the way they're thinking.
And the leadership. That's all you hear about him is he's got that lot. He knows how to motivate the guys. He knows how to calm them down. He knows what buttons to push. And to have, like you said, everything going on. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders as a quarterback. And you got 3-ring circuses. Literally, you're in Vegas. It's kind of craziness. And everyone was saying how calm they were seeing everyone in San Francisco was, right? Oh, look at Purdy. He's always calm. I'm like, inside, he's probably not calm, and Patrick Mahomes is kind of like, I don't know, like a chipmunk on crack, probably with his brain, like, check downs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just love watching him go to work. And we've all been in the business long enough, and you talked about your friends that might have been like, oh, it's rigged. When a player is like that and they have that 2-minute drill and they've been there, done that before, it's like, buckle up. They're going to ginsu your way down to the end zone and boom.
And also just a giant hats off to Andy Reid. I mean,
Great coach.
I know I told you this before I came in. I'm from New Orleans, and the relationship between a coach and a quarterback to me has been like obviously very vital, I think, in success. And when I watched Sean Payton and Drew Brees, what they did in New Orleans together, I know it's a sensitive subject here in Minnesota, but what they did together for so long, you can see that type of relationship between Andy and Patrick. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Patrick's success and what he's been able to do is because of that. And obviously before that with Eric Bieniemy being there as well. And so I think when you look at those types of, like, we can say all these great things about Mahomes, but there's definitely a conversation to be had about being in the right place with the right leadership and the right
like Tom
everything
and Bill.
else. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I mean, you're looking at this draft coming up. There are probably 3 exceptional prospects, and there are probably 3 or 4 more who could very well be very good.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder if the variable is not how good these quarterbacks are, but where they end up and who coaches them.
Exactly.
CJ Stroud,
Yep.
Bryce Young.
Yep.
I mean, you can have that argument here,
No doubt. All right, let's we always highlight women's sports on this show. And I want to get to PWHL at its first trade ever. Boston acquired Abby Cook from the Minnesota PWHL team and forward Susanna Tapani, and got Sophie Jocks, the Minnesota PHL. They got to give us a name. They got to come up with a nickname soon. I hate saying the Minnesota PWHL team. But
I think they're going to be assigned one. All of them
really?
are.
So the league's going to do it.
That's kind of what I heard. Now, don't quote
Interesting.
me
So they're
on
doing
it
it the opposite of the way the Minnesota Aurora did.
Yeah. So that's the buzz I heard. And so I think when we get one here in Minnesota, everyone will get one. So
interesting.
They just
and they're in second place now, so they're still having a very good season. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Mara Braun on this show. Her being out, Gophers just having trouble functioning without her. She wasn't even having as good a season as I expected her to, but she's still so important. They just can't function without her.
Yeah, I mean, I love Janae. She plays her heart out.
Yep, she does.
But, you just can't fill the shoes. It's like losing your Patrick Mahomes, and especially when you're in a groove and you're playing so well and everything is kind of orchestrated around what she can do, and then she's gone. Janae's just trying her best, but you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, and with Mara, she spread defenses out with the 3-point shooting, at least a threat of 3-point shooting, and she could get her own shot. And they just haven't figured out how to play without her, and which is kind of understandable.
Yeah, because she the tide lift all boats, right?
Yes.
But I think Janae was the only one in double figures. I think
Janae's a good player.
Sophie Hart and Maya both had 7. So
yeah, Janae's a good player, but she's not really a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And you move her in the starting lineup, then you lose that from your bench. She's just, it's just typical basketball math.
But I will give them this. I think they ran out of steam because they went toe to toe with Ohio State at the beginning. It was just kind of in the second half when, I think the Buckeyes went on like a 9-0 run, and then they just it was like they were in quicksand after that, and they just couldn't get their footing after that. And so that's where I was disappointed, because I'm like, look at them holding their own. I know it's growing pains. They'll learn, and they'll probably become better from going through that. But that second half, I was like, oh.
Yeah. Another women's college basketball note, Caitlin Clark, I think, is 8 points from setting the all-time scoring record. And yet, Iowa has had 2 games this year where they had leads in the fourth quarter on the road, and they lost them, and they kind of collapsed. And this last weekend, that happened at Nebraska.
Right.
And they absolutely should have won that game. Clark started missing.
She went cold.
She went cold, and they don't really know what to do with that when she's not hot.
Exactly. I think mentally they went cold as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what? So I thought the same thing, but I don't follow them as closely if it's not her.
Right.
So I'm like, gosh, is it the same thing? Is it one superstar and the rest of them crumble? I'm not saying that they crumbled. I'm just saying when you're in those close, moments, like who pulls through? It's usually your star.
We do want to thank Rudy Luther Toyota. We have one more women's top to get to, and then I'm going to let Dawn and Tatum take over and have a nice conversation here. So thanks to Rudy Luther Toyota.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
Hey everyone, it's John Krasinski from The Athletic, and on this podcast network, we have the John Krasinski Show, we have the Viking Update Show, talking Timberwolves and Vikings all the time, and some really fun adventures ready for this summer, including partnering with Defined Destinations on a wonderful trip to Spain from August 22nd to 29th. And if you sign up with Defined Destinations at defineddestinations.com, you can go with me to Madrid and Barcelona. The trip includes airfare from Minneapolis, St. Paul, centrally located hotels, a city tour of Madrid, a city tour of Barcelona. We'll stay in 4-star hotels. We'll take some tapas and sangria food tours. They'll have all sorts of different sightseeing adventures. We'll have guided local tours to show us around. Maybe we'll even knock on Ricky Rubio's door. Who knows? But I think it's going to be a great time. You've probably heard Michael Russo talk about these trips and how much fun that they have. And so after a long season with the Timberwolves, hopefully one that goes deep into the spring and early summer, maybe you want to come with me to Madrid and Barcelona in Spain at the end of August for just a wonderful tour. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, sign up at defineddestinations.com. Look for John Krasinski's Spain trip, and I hope to see you out there.
All right, our Minnesota Aurora moment. Now, Andre Ayuk was one of the founders, probably the most influential founder of the franchise. She has now kind of backed away a little bit from the day-to-day operation. Jessica Poole is the new team president and COO. And at Minnesota Aurora, mnaurora.com, really good piece from Jessica this week.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. We're on the same page.
Yeah. So the headline is, "I am my ancestors' wildest dream." And the lead to her column, her story is, "Being a Black woman in America is hard." I'll let you pick up from there. But hey, this is what Minnesota Aurora stands for: diversity, opportunity, and building something special from the ground up.
Yeah, and they don't shy away, kind of like the Lynx don't, about taking a stand and speaking out and being about not only moving the needle. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but what I thought was interesting that Jessica said is, I want to make change and I'm all for diversity, but what we're starting here at Minnesota Aurora, I hope can make global change. So they want to be the example for other female teams, and yes, in soccer, but also beyond, to kind of take that and move it forward. And I think in the article, she also talked about how few Black women there are in sports in general, but especially so in female sports. And I think that's what she said. It's hard to be a Black woman in America. So I'm excited that she wrote this article, because I know when Andrea started Minnesota Aurora, this is what she wanted. And Andrea was not afraid to take a stand on issues. And so now here's Jessica taking that and advancing it. And I was thrilled to read that. It's a good read. If you go to minnesotaroar.com, it's right on there.
Yes. It's also cool to be in this market where Leah B. Olson and Rebecca Brunson, and there are Black women working in the media who are very good at what they do.
Yeah, Mika Morris over at the
yes,
Twins.
Yes. So a lot of good people in town. All right. I'm going to back away from the mic now, and I'm going to let Dawn take over and have a conversation with Tatum. I doubt if I'll be of any use from this point on.
Oh, I think you're going to chime in.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I know you. Well, just to reintroduce Tatum Everett over at Vikings Entertainment Network. Tatum, your work there, I know that you said that you've been a reporter when it comes to news and been in sports, but when you came to the Vikings, and it was really enticing for you to kind of get entrenched in one team, which is so different from the roles that you have to do as a reporter beforehand, where you have to kind of know everything. How for you has that been? And I'm not going to say from a female aspect, because when people ask me that, what's it like to be a female? I'm like, well, I don't know what it's like to be a male. So I can only speak for me. It's great. So, but from your aspect of changing kind of that attitude of focusing on one thing, how has that been for you?
It was always kind of a dream of mine to be able to focus on one thing and put all of my thought and energy into one sport. Football's kind of always been it for me. And I just learned other sports and the rules and followed it just because it was like something I had to do to be able to cover football. And so for me, I was always trying to get, and I'll be honest, like I didn't really ever have any desire to work at a regional sports network because they were not covering the NFL or college football. And that's really, again, what I wanted to do. So I'd always kind of had my eye on these team reporter jobs, and obviously other networks, but mainly the ones where you could just cover football. And I always tell young journalists, I was like, being a team reporter, you have to know a lot about a little, but then if you're doing local TV sports, you know a little about a lot, because you can't dedicate yourself in some positions. Like obviously you guys know so much about the Vikings and you're so entrenched with the team because of the partnership and the shows and things like that. But then like, you don't get the break that I do, which is actually really nice.
Like off season,
I turned my brain off for like a month afterwards. You know, I'm like following stuff and I'm doing my job. It's just not as intensive. And I don't have to go, okay, so now that football is over, I need to keep up with the Timberwolves. I need to keep up with the Lynx. I need to know what's going on with Gophers, hockey, and basketball. Like I don't have to do that. And it's honestly great for my mental health, at least. It was great. So I do like that. And then to be able to know so much about one team, and the Vikings in particular, has just been, it's been awesome. Like I really do truly enjoy knowing more about the game. I've learned so much just being here more. I'm a better football fan, and football, like my knowledge has grown a lot. The Vikings afford me to do things where I can take courses so I can learn a bit more, because I mean, I feel like learning is and evolving is such a big thing in what we do, that if I'm supposed to ask these questions of these players, I need to be the best at what I can. My knowledge needs to be top notch. I need to make sure they feel comfortable not looking at me like, why does she have this job?
Mhm.
So, and not just a she thing, just like a why does this person have
No,
this
but sometimes
job?
the spotlight is harder. They're going to say, all right, what is this blonde or whatever, redhead? What whenever
for
a
sure.
woman comes in, what does she, what can she prove to me?
Exactly.
You're
So,
put on
and,
that.
and I think the other interesting part is with being in-house, something that I actually work on a lot is being able to connect and talk to coaches and players, and like my relationships with them within the building off camera are important. Making sure that they're comfortable around me for interviews has been the easiest part. It's the seeing them in the hallway and talking to them about something, or making sure the coach knows who I am. So if I have to ask them for an interview, they're comfortable with me coming up to them being like, hey, what about our podcast or whatever. And so that's also like a huge part of the game, is being able to, and it's easier now that like I'm 3 years in, but my first year I was a little overwhelmed. That staff had been in there for 20 years, like the GM, Zimmer had been there for a long time. And so when that all flipped, I felt like we were all in the same playing field. Like I had started with a new staff and so was everyone else. And so I kind of really took it to my advantage. And I was like, how can I make these relationships super strong right out of the gate, because I have that opportunity now.
And one thing I don't know if fans realize, the Vikings are really on the cutting edge of Vikings Entertainment Network.
Yeah.
Some people just look and they'll say, okay, it's online. And like, no, like they have their own studios. They have shows. They do podcasts. It is amazing. And for you have to be diverse enough in your talent to, okay, I'm hosting this show right now. Oh, now I'm doing a podcast. Now I'm doing a one-on-one interview. It's for people on the outside looking in, they don't realize that sometimes in our business, those are totally different skill sets that you have to possess. And for people like you and I, sometimes that's fun. Like I'm like, oh, if
Love a
I am in that
challenge, yeah.
situation, I'm loving it. But it could be intimidating for some.
I think so. I think, I don't want to be a broken record, but having that local television background where, I was a one-woman sports department at my first job. Then I was in basically a one-woman sports department, my second job. And then my third job, I did have like some coworkers. But then when I was in Nashville, my last 6 months in Nashville, I was a one-woman sports department, no photographer, no producer, doing a 30-minute show every Sunday and covering 3 professional teams in Market 30. Like that's a lot. Also why I left. And so, like that does take a toll on you. But at the same time, I always have been the kind of person who like everything I feel like I've done or experienced has just prepared me for the next. And so coming into the Vikings, you do like, I've never emceed an event. I don't know how to host people I have no clue how to do that.
Just be yourself.
Right. I've hosted pep rallies. I didn't know I could
Same
do
thing.
that. Right. Like I host our business summit. Like there are a lot of things outside of the realm of broadcasting that I've had to translate my skills into. And I don't think that I would feel as comfortable or as versatile if I hadn't gone through all of those other experiences. Now, the best part about my job, to answer your first question you had for me, I haven't lifted a camera in 2.5 years.
Yes.
That's been the greatest because, I think sometimes when you get into this industry, there are reasons you get into it. Like my husband, for example, was also on air at one point, but his main thing that he loves to do is writing. And he's a videographer is his number one like job. And now he's learning.
Amazing one at that.
Yeah, he's very good. He's a little biased. But I think his writing's actually better, which is kind of insane. He's learning lighting. He's doing all this kind of stuff. And so he's kind of switched this way. Whereas me, I got in and I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to learn how to shoot a camera and light an interview and do that stuff to get by. I like the writing, being on air, talking to people, the relationships, being in front of the camera, things like that. So, like it's just a necessary evil. So now I get to focus on that side of things. And you're right, though. You don't realize how much you have to do in 1 week. I've never really thought about that too much, Don. That was pretty cool.
So let's go back a little bit. I know that you went to LSU.
Anyone that has met me probably knows that.
It's like, oh, what, you don't know?
I'm a little proud.
Like, she didn't tell you in the first 5 seconds. It's like me with Boston College. So
yes, exactly.
People always are curious. How did you get into it? Did you have brothers? Did you play sports? In LSU, I mean, you have to bow to the throne of, the Tigers. But how was your early life like that? And how did you get entrenched in sports?
Everyone always, that's a very popular question. And I think I kind of surprise people when I tell them, I was not an athlete. I didn't have brothers. So it's like, I did pageants. I liked, student council. I was, and I liked theater. So how did I get there? I think just being in the South, you're surrounded by football. Both my parents love sports. Mainly LSU sports. We weren't the kind of family that would just flip on the NBA finals. That just wasn't us. We would always watch football or LSU. We'll watch every LSU basketball game, every LSU baseball game that was on TV. That was it for us. And so I think I just kind of fell in love with that idea then. And I think, when I was a pretty ambitious kid. So early on, I was I could talk about football on TV. I could get comfortable with that idea. And I think you just play to your strengths. I was never going to be a doctor or a scientist. Those were not my strengths. I could definitely just look at my test scores. They were not great. I could write, and I could talk, and I had the theater experience. And so that's just, I took a broadcasting class in high school, and it's funny because it was one half of the class was the technical side and one half of the class was the talent side. That's how old school it was back at my high school broadcasting class. So I hadn't even picked up a camera until college, but I don't know. I just kind of thought it was what I wanted to do. And everyone kept being it's hard, it's competitive. And I kept being okay, tell me something I don't know. I kind of just was, it wasn't that I didn't listen. And I was I never had a prove you wrong attitude. I think I was just no, but I don't think you understand. I know I can do this and I'm going to be good at this. So I don't need to prove you wrong. I'm just going to do it.
Right. Well, I think that's one thing two things right there that you and I have in common. I was totally into dancing and theater and all of that. And actually, my dance teacher was on Broadway and she was in the New York Ballet. And she was I will take you to Broadway and you can be my protege. And I was also an excellent student. So I was well, do I go to college? Do I do that? And I remember I sat down with my parents, to have the discussion. And I so thought my parents were well, you're going to college. So I'm there and I'm waiting. And my parents look at each other and they said, well, we've discussed this and it is your life. It is your decision. We support what you do. And I'm no.
Oh my God, I just got goosebumps. That's incredible.
Yeah. I'm no, you're supposed to tell me. You're in high school.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
And I picked college instead. And I don't regret it, but I laugh because someone said this to me. They said, do you know how competitive it is on Broadway? And my dance teacher told me bring 3 tap shoes with you because girls will cut the straps. It's cutthroat.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. And those cattle calls when you have to do it, she was honest with me about what it was. And I'm thinking, well, education, you can't take away from you. Right. So I was kind of going back and forth on that. But then my friend said, but you went to something that wasn't cutthroat. And I'm
right.
Okay, I guess.
Just
and it
as
is
competitive,
performing in a different way. And I don't admit this very often, but I did do pageants because I paid for college. So I was looking for some college money.
Yeah, Miss America organization.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So mine was Miss USA, which I wish was Miss America because there's more focus on talent.
It's you get more scholarship out of that.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, you could have danced.
I know.
See, everyone's always what pageants did you do? I was the ones where there wasn't talent.
Oh.
Because my talent was talking.
Yeah.
Or talking. And so what was I going to do? My mom tried to talk me into doing a monologue forever. I was no one likes the girl that does a monologue. She's never going to win. She's never going to win.
I had
just wish for world peace.
Yeah, world peace. What planet?
Yes.
Right. I know. That's the big jokes. I did have that moment, which is ironic that I'm even in this business where I froze. I was supposed to say something. And I will never forget it. So in Worcester, Massachusetts, Worcester, as they say, Massachusetts. And I'm in this beautiful gown and I had to say something and I blanked. And all I could feel is 5,000 or how many in the audience eyes on me. And I just kind of, whatever I did. And I'm and now I do this for a living.
Yeah.
I was Baton Rouge, Cindy, Baton Rouge.
Before I got to college, I was scared to death to speak in front of a classroom.
Were you?
I absolutely couldn't do it.
I couldn't call to order pizza.
I think it's a common
was me.
misconception that people who do television like public speaking. Because when I first started doing the emceeing stuff and being in front of like a crowd of people, I still get nervous. And they're like, well, why do you do this all the time? I'm like, there's a difference between looking at a camera, especially in studio. In studio, I could literally like fold my laundry while reading a teleprompter. Like it's not even that, for me, it's just like riding a bike. But like when you're in front of someone with no script, or you have to remember to say certain things and make sure you address the crowd a certain way. And oh man, that stuff gets me every time.
I love it now. I still get that nervous energy. Well, then you start realizing they just want you to be comfortable and talk to you. So I've kind of learned that after a while, but growing up, my parents, after I graduated, you graduate school, I was working and living in Boston, and you have to, as a single woman, you have to do it or you'll get eaten alive. And I remember I took them to this old restaurant called the European, and they sat us by this door. And my mother and I were both like the quiet ones. My dad was the bull in the china shop, going searching for clothes, like for school shopping. He'd be like, where are the bras? And you're like, oh my God, dad, right? But so he was a bull in china shop. So here we are. Finally, we're sitting by the door, and I could tell my mom, who was kind of quiet, but a strong woman. So I just went up to them. I said, excuse me, can we have another, table and that? And like, oh yeah. My dad was like, who are you? Who are you? You spoke up for yourself? And I'm like, look out. So that's kind of, you don't turn back after that, right?
I also think it is a common misconception about pageants in general. I mean, I didn't do the ones where you were like the really smart kid because I didn't have the talent portion, but the interview process is like not like no joke. And this is granted, this was, 20 some odd years ago. Right. So I can't speak for them currently. I'm not connected to it in any way anymore, but a lot of the women that I met through them and ones that have gone on since are some of the most brilliant women that I've met. Yeah. It gives you this sense of confidence that you can speak to adults, that you are an adult at some, because I did teen pageants. I didn't ever do a Miss pageant, like the over 18. So it just gives you this sense of confidence because you have gone in front of people before. You have answered a question live on stage in front of thousands. You're having to interview for things. Like those are just crucial skills to move forward in. I had a mentor one time tell me, like, I don't care if you don't want the job. You just need to go on the interview because what happens when you get the interview you really want and you haven't gone on any. And so those kinds of skills that you got while doing pageants, as lame as that sounds, was really helpful, especially in TV when you have to learn makeup skills. That was helpful too.
Vaseline on the teeth was the number one.
Oh, I don't think I've done that.
Oh yeah, because if you're nervous and your mouth gets dry and your lips stick, put a little Vaseline on your teeth and it just makes your smile go. Yeah.
That sounds disgusting.
It was disgusting. It's just like a little thin kind of.
That's funny.
And I'm like, oh, okay, because you were nervous, and then it's just kind of.
I still get pretty nervous. I haven't shaken the live shot bug yet, but I also think it's because I'm a very hypercritical person. So like I'm in my head all the time about that stuff, which I think is hard too. Sometimes when you're in this business, like Dawn gets up there and just like kills it every time. It's like she has no nerves. And I'm like, that's where I'm trying to get.
No, there's sometimes you do have nerves, but I think it's when the very first time I did the national sidelines, I think you get a little nervous. But then I do, like, you do that breathing technique and realize this is something you do every day. It doesn't matter how big the audience is. It doesn't matter if 2 people are watching or, the nation's watching. It doesn't matter.
That's true. You sound like some of the players in the locker room. Right? We just practice. We just practice it every day. So when we get out there, it's just second nature.
But I think the thing is, and I have said these words to myself, get out of your head.
Yeah.
Because when you're in your own head, you sometimes are subdued. And people are like, oh, were you tired? Were you quiet? And I'm like, no. But when you're in your own head, so I hear athletes say that, but you do. Like, get out of it. Like, do some breathing techniques, get in there. But I don't do it like right before I go on live. It was probably my first time that I was going to do a network sideline. And I was like, oh my God. Then you start thinking about it. Like, oh my God, this is what I dreamed of. And they're like, get over yourself. Just do what you do. And then, and if you make a mistake, laugh or just keep going with it.
I think that's the hardest part too, sometimes, was just like realizing super young, like, be yourself, but also like, if you mess up, it's not the end of the world. Like, laugh about it or make fun of yourself, or like, and I still work on that and Viking stuff, because I think sometimes, we're very, and I don't feel like I'm, it's a good word for this. I don't feel like I'm saying anything that I shouldn't say, I guess. But like, like I can ask you a question about the Vikings, but I really am not, I can't have a hypercritical opinion. And,
Right.
where that's the major difference between what I do now and what I used to do. Right. And so, I think sometimes when I'm thinking about that, I'm like in my head about it, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, but people are watching you because they like your personality. They're watching you on here because they want to watch you do what you do. So like, it's a balance between like being yourself and saying what you want to say, and then like also making sure that you keep your job.
Right. Know where your bread is buttered, right?
Yes, and I don't mind it. I never got in this business. And again, there's so many different things you can do in broadcasting and sports broadcasting. And like, I didn't really ever want to be a breaking news reporter. It really wasn't my shtick. I didn't care about that as much. I liked the feature style stories. I liked telling player stories, and things like that. So for me, going this route was more natural, was more comfortable, because I didn't feel like I was too out of the realm. Like, yes, my opinion is not, like I don't share it as often very much, but like that's also not my job, and that's okay.
Well, and also if you want to take the next step as a news reporter, I'm not supposed to, like Jim, when you do a column, you can give your opinion.
Oh, yeah.
People now, unless it's a forum where I can give an opinion, like a podcast, for me, maybe I'm still old school. My opinion isn't what people are tuning into. This is not about me. Right. This is the story that I am reporting as I see it. And I have to give facts. And I remind people, like, I know you don't like social media, but the fans get so emotional, Jim, and you know that I'm like, I take the emotion out of it. I am only dealing in facts, and my personal opinion doesn't matter in this. Now, if I'm on a podcast and it's a different thing and it's an editorial, I'll give mine. But also, it's the same thing. Vikings partnerships. I'm not going to go rip but we have the freedom to say.
We're not going scorched earth here.
No, we're not going scorched earth. But I can say, hey, this was terrible call.
Sure.
This is blah blah blah. I'm questioning this, questioning that. I would do that anyway, just because I've been in it for a long time. But you also know how to do it in a professional way. Just like there's those gotcha journalists that I've never aspired to or think really should exist, where they're just doing it just to get a reaction out of an athlete rather than the truth. Like, I'm going to pose it this way just to get under his skin. I remember I was in Chicago and some reporter said something about Jim Miller, and it was asking about, I can remember, and he got under his skin, and thank God social media wasn't really that big back then, but it was kind of like he went, and that's that gotcha where you just get under their skin and they explode, rather than just give me you can ask a tough question and you can ask it professionally.
And that doesn't sit well with me. Like, I don't want to do that to someone. I want the truth, but I don't need to be, have a different agenda about it. Right. I don't like that. I'm also just like, don't want confrontation. I'm really cool with that. I want to know what happened, but I don't.
If it's a legit question, I don't mind it.
Yeah. So, right. But you ask it professionally. You're never like you said, like trying to get under someone's skin. That's probably the biggest part. Yeah. I mean, but it's definitely a delicate balance. I would say I've struggled with it a little bit more recently, trying to figure all of that out. I think when you have a 13-win season, it's pretty easy to let things fly and you're good to go. But when you hit adversity, I think that's when sometimes you can struggle with, how to word things, phrase things, what you feel like you can do and can't do.
I think really high level caliber athletes know when they mess up, and they gain respect for you if you professionally call them on it. When we were in the locker room after they lost the NFC Championship way back, and I remember Adrian Peterson had those fumbles. Remember, we're in New Orleans. No one was asking about the fumbles, and you had to. And I said, and then I'm at the point because I didn't want to be the one to ask him that. I'm like, no one else is. I'm like, all right. I go, Adrian, those fumbles though, uncharacteristic. He's like, I know. I know they make me sick and blah, blah. And afterwards, when everyone was done, he goes, thanks for asking me about those.
That's awesome.
Because I was upset with myself. But he wasn't going to bring it up.
No.
But, it was kind of like, okay, so you're an elite athlete,
Mm-hmm.
And then when they know and you know, and you ask it in a way that they can address it, rather than, oh, Butterfingers, that kind of thing, because we have to see them again. I said, it's not like sometimes a news reporter, you're never going to see who you're interviewing again, right? Like we're facing these guys. Yeah, you build relationships.
You're going to see them in 3 days for locker clean out.
Right. And they're going to be like, oh, Butterfingers. Oh, okay. They're going to remember and they're not going to like you. And Jim, you've been on the end of both of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where you have to ask the tough questions, but you also know you've got to face the music if you do that.
Yeah.
So,
but and my role is just different than most.
I would love to have your role at some point where you can just kind of like, column is totally different.
It's completely different.
It's kind of freedom.
Yeah. I mean, I did all the other jobs.
Yes.
High schools,
Mm-hmm.
pro beat writer, Twins, Vikings, feature writing, some investigative work. And this is just a completely different animal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I
Is
think,
is this like, are you enjoying that in this time of your life, or is this something you've always wanted to do?
I always wanted to do it, but I don't know. I've been really lucky because, at first I just wanted a decent job, and it took me a while to get a decent job. And then I was like, okay, maybe I want to be a pro beat, because I was around it enough to see what it was like, and I wanted to give it a shot. I got to cover the Dallas Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. It's one of the best jobs in the country. And I came here to cover the Vikings. It was a great job. Then at some point they asked me to go cover the Twins, which was terrible for my life, but it was great professionally. 1 year covering the Twins, I spent 180 days on the road.
Oh, that's also why I love football. 16, 17 games.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
So, but you get to a point where you feel like you've done all the reporting things, you've done everything else, and you do want to just be able to sit down and say, here's, through my experience, through my contacts, through whatever, my thought process, here's where I'm coming down on this issue. It's a cool thing to be doing at this point in my life.
Yeah. It's like unscripted, right? You can just kind of say what you feel, and also give a forum for things that it's not the daily.
No.
If you have an opinion
we have
on
beat
something,
writers covering the teams, which frees me up to, and I can go, I can write analysis, I can write criticism, I can write praise, I can write history. I can kind of go any direction I want, whatever serves the purpose for my paper that day.
Are you writing one for the Super Bowl?
I wrote one for the Sunday as a preview, and then I wrote off the game last night.
You did?
Which is weird.
Okay, I have to go look at it.
What's weird is I used to cover Super Bowls live, and we've gotten to a point where we're not spending money on that, and it's excuse me, it feels really weird to sit home and write about
and watch it
when you're not there, because you feel like you need to be there. But it would also be weird to not write about the Super Bowl. So I don't feel great about it, and I don't think it produces great columns to sit home and write, but I don't know. Every
but
once in
there's
a while,
a reality
you have to do it that
where
way.
we are in terms of cost effectiveness in our businesses as well.
Yes. But, covering the Super Bowl live, I got to talk to Matt Burke after he won his Super Bowl. I got to talk to Tom Moore from Rochester, Minnesota, when he was Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator. I got to talk to Tony Dungy when he was, and you're there face to face, and you can actually get some one-on-one time, believe it or not. And it's just weird to not do it that way.
Mm.
You're going purely off of the broadcast, like what you saw and stuff. You're not getting any firsthand account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you feel like you need that little extra.
Makes sense.
Well, we've seen in the past too where play-by-play guys are sitting in a closet watching it and kind of doing the play-by-play from, people don't know most of the time.
Right.
But that's how the business goes in terms of TV too.
Just where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we finish up, Tatum, I wanted to ask you this question because people automatically assume, we talked about being, whether you're an introvert or not. Like I'm an ambivert. And then you end up in this. An ambivert is sometimes I'm introverted, sometimes I'm extroverted.
I thought I meant you're on Ambien.
I was kind of
I've never tried Ambien.
But
Maybe I should.
I've heard of like an extroverted introvert and an introverted extrovert.
Yeah, so they call it ambivert. Yeah, kind of like boom.
Okay, I like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to still.
No, it's true though, right? So people just automatically assume that you're extroverted. Mm-hmm. Also, if you're a woman in sports, they automatically assume that you're here with a soapbox. And I have found, like I always said, I never set out to to take the torch and And I said, but I've kind of morphed into that because for me, I'm a little disappointed that where we are in 2024, it's not more advanced. Where some of the fights or internal sometimes with myself, not external, because you had to smile and get your job. Some of the fights I had when I first started are still going on. And you see your brethren or other people kind of, oh yeah, I started with that person and now he's like the president of blah, blah, blah. And I'm still doing the same thing. So in terms of moving the needle, but I also don't want to do it in a gruff way. Like I don't want to be not myself. Yeah. Do you find now, especially young girls coming to you, that you're put in a position that you didn't think of when you first started? Like, I just like sports and I just wanted to talk about sports. But now I'm, not that I have to champion something, but I really feel strongly about helping women behind me and like kind of reaching back and lifting them up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I will say, like, in what I've done, I've been fortunate enough to not experience a lot of sexism. I always say that, like, if someone comes at you and they're like, well, you only got this job because you're a woman. I'm like, well, cool. At least I got to use who I am to my advantage. And then I made what I could out of the opportunity.
Yeah, you got to stay there.
Right. and I got advice really early on where it was like, to be a woman in sports, looks come and go. If that's what you're going to put your career into and that's why you are, what you're using to go for jobs, then you probably will not have as long of a career as someone who is invested in what they do. They are willingness to learn. Like you have to be good at your job. And I'm not saying that you can't be both because I think you can, but knowing that you have to back yourself up was always like a big deal thing for me. I've had talent coaches. I've had football courses. Like I've done I do the work because I know that's what's going to help me sustain long term. And so those are the kinds of things that I pass on a lot, I think, to young women. And I think it's very easy to feel like you need to do that. And the feeling of helping other women and that thought process now that we're also connected on social media, I'm not sure. I'm sure I would feel the same, but maybe not so much like responsibility for a lot of people as opposed to just maybe ones that I would have connected with, because with social media, you have this like vast array of people. And honestly, like I just went back to LSU in October to do back to my mass comm school. They had a sports summit and they wanted to include, they included like a lot of women that either I went to school with or just right after me. And we had there were so many women that wanted to do sports and we talked to them forever, and they find you on LinkedIn and they email you and you try to have all the time for them that you can. And I think that like just being there, because I mean, I was that person at one point. And if you would have told me, a freshman at LSU, that I would be a team reporter, which was not a job when I graduated school, I'd probably be like, hey, you did pretty good, girl. Like you did okay. So I think that they just aspire to do the things and want to know, and you try and help them as much as you can. I do feel like there is a sense of responsibility, but like it's sometimes hard for me to think that people look up to me because I still look up to so many people, and I don't picture myself as someone that like is that level yet. I don't know. That's kind of what always, goes around in my mind. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can give you this advice, but I don't know. I haven't searched for a job in a while. I don't really know what agents do anymore. I don't have one. Like, I don't understand that world as much as I used to,
You brought up a good point where you said, someone said this to me and you were just honest about who you were. And I always say that's maybe the number one thing I tell people, but like, well, what do you mean just be myself? What do you mean? And so I sometimes tell this example, and I want to preface it by this person and I'm not going to say his name, but we're very good friends still to this day for eons. But it was hiring for a job, something that I had already done for this company. This before I was on air, which ironically that plays into the story. Who knew in the future I would be on air? But I was like just freelance, and I wanted a full-time job. And, because I was working like 4 freelance jobs, so 80, hours a week just to, pay my bills with my 5 roommates, that kind of thing. But I remember I went in and I had my suit on and I was ready for this full-time field producer's job. And basically, I was brought in, I thought, for the 3rd interview, so I figured I had it. And then by the end, he was just chit-chatting, but by the end I was like, it wasn't going anywhere. And he said, hey, thank you for coming in, but I just want to tell you that we've already hired for the job. So I was kind of mad that they put me through the rigmarole. And he said, because I see you, this is a field producer's job. It's out in the fields, and fields are messy, and fields are, that kind of thing. And I can feel like my anger kind of creeping up, and I'm keeping it in check. And, I see you more like, with makeup on, behind a desk, like maybe on air. And that was insulting to me because I've been doing field producing, right? So finally, I just smiled, and I said it's super nice. I said, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and thank you for the constructive criticism. And he said, well, I didn't give you constructive criticism. I said, yes, actually, this will help me in the future for the next time that I interview for a job that I'm already doing. I won't wear a suit. I'll wear jeans and a t-shirt so you can take me more credibly. And he just looked at me, right? And I said, thank you, shook his hand and left. And I was like, because I was so mad, but I was professional about it. So thank you, did it. 2 days later, he called me and offered me the job.
The field producer job.
Yep, I got the job. And he's like, and then afterwards it was, dang, you laid the velvet hammer down on me. I go, no, I didn't, but I was already doing the job. I was overqualified for the job. And you made it seem like all I needed to do was put makeup on and look pretty. And I said, now I can do that too, but that was insulting. And he was like, yeah. And still to this day, so I always say, listen, don't be rude, but be yourself. Like stand your ground. Because if you know you can do something, you're qualified. And somebody says that, like, I think nowadays, and it was kind of skirting the line of like, not illegal, but you shouldn't say that anyway. But he's a kind, great person, is still a very good friend of mine. Because he's like, but I'm friends with them because he said, I adore you. You're going to be my friend for life because you were honest.
I just think there was an old school way of how men spoke to women.
Yeah.
I found that like a lot of my, bosses and news directors or whatever that were a little younger were very delicate with how they put things. When I got the job in Shreveport, Louisiana, my news director was like, so what do you want your look to be? And I was like, I don't know. I've been doing this for 4 years. What's wrong with my look? Because that's how I took it. And he's like, no, I'm just trying to help. Like, you want to be consistent in what you look. Funny enough, I changed my hair like 7 times while I was there. So it really didn't matter. But he was like printing out pictures of Carrie Underwood and like
stuff.
And I was like, this is kind of silly, right? And so I didn't take too much offense. Again, it's hard to offend me. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not worried about my look. Like I'm not worried.
Should have punched him in the throat.
Well, should probably
mentally.
This second story might actually make you a little upset. But I remember I had dyed my hair blonde because I thought everyone, wanted a blonde, right? And so I had been dyeing my hair all different colors throughout high school and college. And so I had lightened it up a little bit. And then I was like, no, I think I'm going to try and go back to my roots. And so I started to go back a little bit. But my resume tape had all blonde hair. And so I went to got this, I was on this job interview, which, by the way, was an absolute lateral move. My first job was at a cable station in a parish, which is a county in Louisiana. And I only covered those county parish sports. Very entry level. But the next job I went to was Market 161 as a weekend sports anchor. So like it wasn't much of a difference. And this guy was like, well, I walked in for the interview and he's like, oh, well, I want to offer you the job, but I need you to dye your hair back to what you look like in the tape because you don't look like the girl that I thought I was hiring. And I was like, cool. I am taking a pay decrease for you to tell me this. And there's some horror stories. And then my dad was like, you're not even making what a cashier at Target makes. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I'm dyeing my hair. So
my first job, I made $6 an hour.
$8.50.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With no benefits.
Wow.
But they didn't ask me to dye my hair, so I was ahead of the game.
Well, and still to this day, your bosses have a say in your look, at least in news. They do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like you have to get things
a little
approved.
bit on it. But
that's why I'm a print person.
Yeah.
They don't care.
You have to get things approved.
They put a cartoon in.
I will say I did get some advice from a mentor who is a male in the industry that I respect so much, just recently retired. And, one of his things was when I was going through like my different hair extension coloring days, he was like, your tape isn't consistent. It's distracting.
Oh, interesting.
And so I was like, yeah, I mean, I understand. You have a point.
I did have a news director in San Diego eons ago when my agent was kind of casting out different things. And I went in there and he said, and it was a great interview. He loved my stuff. And he goes, I got to be honest with you. I don't think blondes look good on TV. And I'm sitting there like, well, where do you go with that? So I almost laughed. I was
Laughing would have been the right response.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, I'm not dyeing my hair brown because I've already done that. When I was out of college, I wasn't even on air yet. My internship, there was blonde jokes. And like, I went to Boston College. I have 4 brothers. There was never dumb blonde jokes in my life. And then I get into sports television. There was a lot of dumb blonde jokes. And I'm like, I just graduated, and I got a great GPA and I don't have to tell you how smart I am, but I dyed my hair brown and it was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, so you can't vary. It's like sometimes I have to low light my hair here because it gets so light in the summer because I am light, but so you get varying degrees of blonde, but I'm lighter. So I dyed it dark and my mom looked like Sophia Loren threw up on Jackie O, right? I was like, whose child is this? Like I came out like needing sunscreen right away, right? But my mom was dark. So I figured she's going to love it that I'm dark just like my mom. And my mom never lied day in her life. I go, what do you think? She goes, it's interesting. It was horrible. And I didn't realize that you couldn't just go back to being blonde.
Oh God, it's a process.
It is a process. So I was like a redhead for a little bit and then a strawberry blonde.
Same.
None of this was on air, but I'm thinking, I'm not going through that again with this guy who says blondes don't look good on TV. Yeah. I just think very much San Diego would have been nice though.
I think if someone were to tell me that someone told them that again now, I'd be like, well, it's all subjective at the end of the day. Like our industry is very subjective. Mm-hmm. Again, it's about who, and it's taken me a long time to understand this. I feel like my personality is my strength. That's what I'm leaning on. That's my superpower in life, I've realized. And so when you are able to show that to other people through TV, that's what they tend to be attracted to and like. And so there are people out there, and I am 100% okay with that, who don't like my voice. There are people out there who don't like my personality or like me on air, and that's okay. Like you're allowed to have your opinion. And there are people that I watch on TV that I don't care for. My mom actually used to send me these text messages of the women on the news in New Orleans. And she'd be like, did you see what so-and-so wore today? And I was like, Mom, that is someone's daughter. And there is someone in where I'm working at right now who's probably sending my photo to someone else. So just keep that in mind the next time you do that about someone. Mm-hmm. Like you're allowed to have your opinion and that's fine. Like it is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, like who you are and your personality and knowing that if I turn on Fox 9 Sports, I know I'm getting Dawn on the TV that night is why people want to tune in. And like, that's what I think you try so hard when you're young to like mold yourself into what you think a journalist does and looks like and talks like.
Be more sporty, be more glam.
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing I get now is sound more conversational. And I'm like, you're right. I have to work on that. Like sound more conversational.
So be yourself. Because you are conversational.
Right. So but that was really hard for me to understand and realize for a very long time.
Well, and I want to say this to if there's any young women out there that want to get in the business, I've had some kids from college when I go and speak there saying, and they'd come up to me on the side and be like, do I have to get plastic surgery? Like, did you have? Yes, I had this one young woman ask me, and she goes, so did you have, I go, are you with this nose? Do you think I've had cosmetic surgery? And like, my dad would say, I go, Dad, what kind of nose do I have? He goes, it's Roman all over your face. Like, that's just a joke, right? I mean, thick skin from the jump. But now I'm realizing it's kind of like that Jennifer Grey. You get a nose job and you're totally different, right? So I'm like, listen, this is who I am. And if any boss tells you they won't hire you on air until you get a nose job or like, put implants in your cheeks or something, you don't want to work for that person.
You don't. But then I'd also be like, would you pay for it? No, I'm kidding.
Well, right. Just kidding. I would say if this is something you want to do for you, go right ahead.
Yes.
If you want to do something for you, I'm not. But if you think you have to do something because someone else says it, you really have to look at, do you want to work for that person? Mm-hmm. But and I said, so
it's a great point.
So don't change, because I said, who's your favorite actress? And they'd be like, well, Meryl Streep. I go, does she look like Miss Universe? And they're like, no. I go, that's your answer. Mm-hmm. She's good at her job and you like her for her. Mm-hmm. And she's beautiful in her own right. So just remember that. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, this generation of women, if you think they
could do a whole other podcast on how social media is making that happen.
So, well, Tatum, thank you so much. Thank you for not only your personality, but for your friendship and also your talent. I'm so glad that you're leading the way in the NFL because I think more and more teams are going to be getting their own TV stations and doing all that, which is a whole different topic we can talk about at another time. But you're a light. And I appreciate you.
Well, thanks, Dawn. You've been welcoming the moment I got here, and it's always nice to have women around in the locker room and sports, and to work with you guys has always been wonderful. So nice to meet you today too. And I just, this is awesome. I love when we can, I mean, I feel like it's like old war stories. Like we get around the table, we're like, oh, this one time, you know.
But that's great, right?
Yeah.
This is what this is for in a way, because
sure.
you don't have time to do this in like another setting. So we'll have you on again.
Oh, anytime, you guys.
Okay, tomorrow.
All right, tomorrow. See you.
We'll give you a
back.
break, but we will have you back on. And thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.